welcome to round one with Abzan Company. We get to keep a pretty obvious keep this game. Mana Dorks Company, not really anything you can do about getting. I mean, you could have nutso combo hands, but it doesn't get that much better. So my opponent leads on this. So my initial thought was snow covered forests is that there's some kind of like land destruction deck. I don't know. People just like to put snow covered forests in the deck for some reason. But Noble doesn't point to red spells. So I guess at this point I'd assume they were like Tooth and Nail or some other weird green ramp deck. It's also possible that I'm reading too much into Snow Covered Forest, but it's just like one of those things that only the oddball decks do. I'm paying the life here because I'm probably going to pay the life next turn anyways to Company, and if I draw a different land that comes into play untapped, I would rather have that in the Canopy. It's going to save, um, like so. I'm taking 2 damage to do this, right? If I use the Canopy twice over 2 turns, if I hit like an untapped land that isn't this, like a basic forest or whatever, that's 2 life anyways. And then I still have the Godless Shrine in my hand, so it's just better to get it out of the way up front. So I opt to cast Spike Feeder here, just use the most mana possible when I have Cord in my hand. Because this is effectively free with a Cord. It doesn't, and casting this, I guess in the face of like a spot removal spell on my Noble, but this does not point towards a spot removal spell on my Noble. Besides, I guess maybe like Twisted Image I could have played around by playing the other Noble, so I guaranteed to have 4 mana next turn. But that's not really something I want to expect at this point. So they are some kind of nonsense green ramp deck. And here, I'm not afraid of taking the life total chunks. And I'm main phasing Company, so in case I hit a Fiend Hunter, I get to kill a Mana Dork. And if I hit another Exalted creature, I get to attack with this because their life total might matter. I hit exactly 2 things, and it actually is... That 2 things is enough to let me combo next turn. I get to go Cord for Angel, so I have 4 creatures, 4 lands, X equals 5, and then I have Angel Feeder, and I have infinite life and infinite power. But I guess I won't have an attacker, but I'll have infinite life and infinite power. And also a backup Company. And there was an attack in there for a couple damage for, I'm not casting Cord for 0. In theory, the damage could matter. And my opponent throws a bit of a wrench in my plan, so I can't just main phase infinite life, infinite power, because then all my creatures die. And it's not true infinite because it's Magic Online. So we're going to have to play a little slowly here and figure it out. So I get to deploy the Noble. It's just free with Cord. You can tap it for the Convoke. The only thing to watch out when doing that is that sometimes when you play your free spell, you can take yourself off of Cord temporarily, and they can break stuff up with responses. But there, my opponent's tapped out, so it's not a concern. So my opponent's going to play Tamio here. And so now I think they're on some kind of like mythic deck. So that's like a Bant Lotus Cobra-esque ramp deck. And, Arbor Elf is technically better than like Llanowar Elf or something, or Avacyn's Pilgrim in this deck. And they're like casting some weird 6-drops. Maybe they wanted, 9 mana dorks, so they have like an Arbor Elf. That was my hypothesis. So they've Tamio'd a couple of their tokens. I'm going to opt not to block. And the reason is that I think the game is going to end next turn. And if I block with the feeder, so I'm going to Cord EOT. If they have a path or something, I'm going to Cord for 5. So if they path in response, I'm going to get one of the Melira combo pieces. Actually, I might just get Angel anyways, because that's effectively the same as a Melira or Anafenza, but it's a little fast. Like, it instantly kills my opponent. Instantly infinite powers with Seer. So I probably would have gotten that, I guess. But I want this feeder to not... So I don't want to block with any of my other creatures because I have 1 toughness. And I can block with the feeder, but I don't want the feeder to have a damage on it so that if Cord resolves and then my opponent tries to path, I still can combo off. And I can't Cord in combat because it's the exact thing. I want to Cord after Elspeth is activated. My opponent hasn't activated Elspeth. So I just take this, let my opponent draw the cards instead of eating that. My opponent was a little shocked at the no blocks, but they make some dorks, and I fire my Cord. And I wait to combo because in theory I can like company into a Finks. And then once you have three, if I gain life, I get an extra counter on the feeder. And then once I have three counters on the feeder, I can just combo off again in response to something. So I make a slight mistake here. I forget that I fire the company, which is right. I hit exactly Witness, and I forget that I have a Cord in my graveyard I just used. I should have gotten that back instead of the company that I do get back. Um, because the Cord would allow me to protect against any kind of interaction, but I go off, my opponent doesn't have anything, they have a single flying blocker, they take, millions and millions of damage, and the game ends. Okay, so sideboarding real fast. I wasn't entirely sure what was going on. I brought in Pontiff to break up mana creatures, and all the answers I had to Planeswalkers. Pulse is kind of nice because it hits a generic threat of any kind. And Revoker, I can actually attack their mana creatures, the ones that I don't draw. This is probably not super great here, but like I know in Legacy that's a big thing in like Death and Taxes Mirrors is you can hit the piece that they have that you don't, and then carry on with the rest of your life. And I sideboarded out the grindy cards. I didn't think that in the green right mirror I need to be drawing extra cards or recurring stuff. I took out like one generic combo piece. Generally the Melira or the Anafenza is the best one, and I was um, Anafenza is better to cut when you're concerned about your mana or your life total because having to get double white often costs life. And here I wasn't concerned about either. I was concerned about potentially attacking my opponent, and the bolster is better. And then I cut a Cord because I was boarding in two cards that are not hits on Collected Company. And I think that you can shave. See, the problem is that so many of your Collected Company hits are just mana dorks that are basically bricks that once you start shaving like more than one actual hit, it gets a little sketchy. I could have cut a land, especially on the draw, but I didn't want to get into that. I wanted to just kind of keep. I guess maybe the Cord would have been better off as being cut a land because like this helps me assemble the combo. But those were the cards I considered. I didn't want spot removal. I didn't know what their big threat was, but it looked like a bunch of Planeswalkers. So yeah, guessing like this is kind of weird and modern. And realistically, I actually should have figured out a little more, but it's I don't know. It's hard to say. I left in Fiend Hunter as a way to pick off a Mana Dork, Sculler as a way to interact with some Planeswalkers if I need to. Um, Leaving this in was a mistake, and I'll be fixing that potentially. But okay, welcome to game 2 against. I guess we're not really sure yet. Bant, Planeswalkers, something. This hand is fine. I'm okay with if I hit any land, I get to pick off all my opponent's creatures. If I hit any mana dork, so there's like 7 of those. So I think there's 22 reasonable draw or 22 good draws and 29 reasonable draws. And in 2 draw steps, I'll take we're like 66 to 75% or something like that, maybe more to have a good hand. And I'll gladly take that. So we trade off mana dorks, and unfortunately I miss. So I play my Spellskite. My opponent has a bit of a problem turn 3, which is Jace. This Jace, yeah. The card is powerful, but I mean this is the exact class of Planeswalker that this deck has issues with. You struggle when your opponent is capable of producing a Planeswalker that adds loyalty to benefit them in some card advantage way because uh, it's hard for you to deal a lot of damage just because your creatures aren't that big. It's hard to pressure that, especially if they're like picking off your stuff, and a lot of your grindy aspect goes away once your opponent's churning multiple cards a turn. So, well, I mean, Jace isn't the best Planeswalker, most powerful, but like Nahiri's a big problem. I've had problems with Chandra Torture Defiance, and I think that's one big push for Maelstrom Pulse is that it's a out to those kinds of things. So, yeah, this is not good. My opponent goes to bounce my bird. I'd rather have the mana immediately, so I redirect to Spellskite. And now I figure it out. So they're the doubling season combo deck. So the idea of that deck is that they have Jace Architect of Thought, and they get to doubling season doubles the number of counters Planeswalkers enter the battlefield with. I believe it doesn't double when you plus them because it's not an effect; it's a cost to add the loyalty counters. So this is not like effect at placing counters on it. It's just you're paying a cost. Um, it's weird, but they come into play with, or they enter the battlefield with double. So Jace Architect of Thought starts at 4, ultimate's at 8. So it enters at 8, and its ultimate is you cast a card from your opponent's deck into your deck. So from your deck, you cast another Jace Architect of Thought, and from their deck, you just cast the best thing. And then, you know, you play 4 cards from their deck in your best Planeswalker, which is probably the Tameo you saw last game, and then you ultimate that, and then you draw 3 cards, you play all those cards. You win the game. Not guaranteed, but pretty much guaranteed. So I hit a land, and we're not allowing any of that doubling season nonsense. Like, I will eventually die to it, and probably would have immediately died to Tameo Ultimate here. So my opponent gets to draw some cards. And I'm going to fire off my Collected Company. I think that's the best way. I get to be potentially mana efficient if I hit a dork next turn. I guess I should have in combat Collected Companied to try and block the Arbor Elf. Yeah, this just isn't good for us. It's just a bunch of Planeswalkers that are adding counters to advance my opponent's battlefield. We fire the company and we actually get countered. Um, I don't actually mind the choice of Disdainful Stroke. It's something that like I initially was very skeptical of, but thinking about it more, I mean, I watched at the Grand Prix Vancouver. Bobby Fortinelli was playing Primeval Titan, so like that's the big thing is you don't negate is really good, but you can't negate a Primeval Titan. So people are playing other counters that hit that. And the one that people default to is usually Unified Will, but like I just watched him have like Azusa, a couple of insect tokens from Hornet Queen, and like a Sakura Tribe Scout. His opponent had 3 creatures and a Unified Will in hand. Just looked really stupid when they couldn't Unified Will something. So I actually don't think Disdainful Stroke is out of the question because it hits Ad Naus, Gifts Ungiven. Um, it doesn't hit any of the Pure Steel stuff, and it's not like as flexible as Negate or Unified Will could be, but it still hits the important stuff, so I don't mind this as a choice. It's actually something I'll consider for the future. So I hit my land. Here I'm basically, actually pretty low on life just from random stuff happening. And I'm kind of obligated to pick off my opponent's battlefield with Pontiff. And I can play the Spellskite, and I can actually redirect to Mio or Jace to it. And I opt to give my opponent a card in exchange for getting a little more time onto Tamio's ultimate. Redirect just so that I can get in a damage without giving them a card. I'm not hugely afraid of life or damage now that I've cleared the battlefield. I get to do a cute little trick here. I don't even know if it's right. So I'm going to be Fiend Huntering this turn. Or I guess I could have played 2 Finks. I think I just wanted to like apply pressure to prevent getting ultimated and then try to combo off because I'm 1 piece away. But I Fiend Hunter my own Pontiff, and then I sack the Fiend Hunter to get a Scry to try and assemble the combo. And then after the Fiend Hunter dies, I get back to Pontiff and I kill the 2 dorks that are on the battlefield. I ship the Ooze, which is the card I mentioned that I didn't want in my deck. Gain some life. And things start getting out of hand here. So I hit Cord, and I actually messed this up. I was supposed to... So I can attack my opponent with 2 creatures, and they can't block one. I actually had lethal here, and I didn't think about it. I forgot. So what I'm supposed to do is attack with these 2 creatures at my opponent, and then I can Cord up Angel, I forgot the part where I knew Seer, Finks, Angel was infinite life, but I forgot that it was infinite power to my creatures, and I should have had lethal here. I just missed it, and I attacked the Planeswalker because I was trying to keep it off ultimate, and I get punished for that by, well, just dying this turn. I actually miss another thing this turn, so my opponent doubling seasons and plays an Architect of Thought, and I'm actually, in order to not die, I'm actually capable of cording up Phyrexian Revoker in response. That's like a pretty strong play against Planeswalkers. That's, I think, most notorious in my play patterns against Karn Liberated. You know, the Tron player taps out for a turn, and then you just cord and effectively counter their Karn or Oblivion Stone or Ugin or whatever. But I forgot about that, and then they get my Revoker. You know, I set up the combo, but it doesn't really matter. So I get Revokered. I concede the game. There's not really, I'm just going to get comboed out. Um, because my opponent can't technically combo me with my own deck because the Finks that persist go back to me, but it's not a pretty picture. Okay, so looking at fixing the sideboard, more answers to Planeswalkers, more Scholars that I can hide them under, a Pride Mage for doubling season, so more interaction. I cut a Finks because I didn't think the infinite life combo was super important. That could be wrong. And then I cut Ooze and Fiend Hunter because I wasn't super excited by them. I didn't think there was any like big creature I needed to kill with this, and I'd rather just Pontiff everything away. I think I was supposed to cut a land, but trying to think if there's anything else I could have fixed. You'll notice the like remaining nonsense pile definitely kind of fell away. It's possible Witness just isn't. Well, no, Witness gets back Pulse, and I need that to kill multiple things. So yeah, I think this is about as good as it could have been. Okay, we're on the play game 3 against doubling season Planeswalkers. Snap, keep, interaction, curve, great stuff. I guess technically I could have let on Canopy in case Bird dies to something and then I draw a Black Source. So here I just fire away Scholar. There's a bit of a decision. So I can either take a Planeswalker, but I'm not really threatened by Narset. Jace is a little slow, so I just take the stroke because my hand's pretty reliant on Collected Company to get the battlefield going. So I know they drew a bird. And here I get to fire Collected Company. And I can either take two halves of the or 2/3 of the combo, or just kill all their creatures. And I know, you know, they drew bird. I know. I can't figure this out with this Expedition Arts. Okay, so I know these are their 4 cards: 2 Planeswalkers, 2 lands. So I'm gonna just kill all their stuff and start developing. And then Kitchen Finks is the most power, so snap that one off. Um, Actually, pressuring Planeswalker kind of matters here. I'm trying to think if there's an argument for taking Seer. I have the same number of Seer and Finks, so it's easier to cord for Seer. There's like minor decisions with me stacking stuff with cord going on in the or with company and cord and stuff in the background, but we can cover those if it ever really matters. The gist of it is that um, if you collected company and you're placing cards on the bottom, you want to put the creatures towards the top of the stack usually, so that there's a company in the bottom of your deck you can filter to them. Uh, in theory, this is real life applications I'm just talking about, but in real, it doesn't happen on Magic Online because you have to execute too many clicks to like view all the cards in your deck and then go back to the top of the order and select the right position. But in real life, it's really easy. Like the accepted shortcut is you pick up your deck and then you cut to the specific portion you want without reordering anything relative to other cards. So you put the creatures you can hit with company on the top of the stack, so that if there's a company on like the bottom few cards of your deck, you'll have access to those creatures. Um, if there's a company, you move it all the way to the bottom so that, let's say you have company and 3 other cards. Well, those 3 other cards weren't cards you wanted to company into the first place. So you want to put it beneath those so that like when you combo off and look through your deck. If the top set of your deck is creatures that you want to hit, you can put the company on top of those. And then like the super minor one is if there's like a chord or a spell you want, you also like that also wants to be like on the bottom on top of any companies so that you can set up chains where like if they break up your combo, you can like have a chord on top and draw into like a good chain of spells. This is all super minor stuff that comes up. I think it came up like one game the entire Grand Prix that it actually mattered, but worth spending some minor amount of mental energy about because it's kind of fun. So, anyways, I know my opponent drew Oath of Nisa for this turn, and they find an Architect of Thought. So, entire hand still known. I end up not playing around Supreme Verdict this game at all because with all their birds and Arbor Elves, I thought there was no chance they had that card. So I just deploy all my stuff. I still have a company back even if that happens. I guess I could have played the Canopy just so like if I draw another good land, I can have that. Shove my damage in. Not too much thought there. My opponent takes the damage and they actually play the wrong Planeswalker and put themselves to dead on board. I have, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. If they play Jason plus hit, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I immediately kill it, but they're not dead. Virtually dead. I don't know if their deck can get out of this, but I company just because Sculler to make sure they didn't draw like Gut Shot or something, and then they lose the game on my attack. Crunch.